What is effective discipline? Well, the definition of discipline is control that is gained by requiring that rules and orders be obeyed and punishing bad behavior. Think back to when you were a child. How were you disciplined? Do you remember how you responded to those types of discipline? Most children in the United States do not respond well to any of these types of discipline. The biggest question that kids ask is, why? And traditional styles of saying, don't do this or don't do that, do not answer these basic questions. After working with Tom Sawyer camps and having the privilege to study under and work for family psychologist Dr. Peter Giroux, I've come across another way that works more effectively when working with children. The tips and tricks that I have picked up from family psychologist Dr. Giroux really do work and can help one out in tight situations. So today I'm going to explain how it is more effective to talk with a child rather than how to talk to a child when disciplining them. So where do we begin? In order to have effective discipline, a conversation with any child needs to happen, and then it needs to start with acknowledgement of what they have done wrong. For this, you need to use questions. Get the child to tell you what he did wrong. The child may insist that he has done nothing wrong, and he may genuinely not understand, but you need to repeat the logic back to them, even if it is wrong, until he understands the errors of his ways. Once the child understands what he has done wrong, you can move on to the next step. The next step is probably one of the hardest of the discipline process, but you need to add in the understanding of why the action is wrong. Asking the question, why is this wrong, is a good starting point. It helps the child look within for the answer. The worst thing that you can do for this process is talk. You want the child to do the majority of the talking, that way they can connect the dots and put things together and come to an understanding. Now, the next thing that you can do for this process and understanding is giving the child scenarios to help the child tell you if the action is okay or not. This can be a fun learning lesson between you and your child, or any child for that matter. You can start making crazy scenarios such as, oh, should I hit Billy? Well, maybe you should push him off a cliff. Is that okay? And as you make these scenarios crazy, you can slowly get serious to the point where you want to make it has been made. After this has happened, you need your child to give you, not give the child, a complete rundown of why the action is not okay. Now that you've done the hardest part, you can begin to set goals with the child, so in the future they know how to act. This is the area where you give the child other ideas of what they can do if they find themselves in a similar situation where the undesired behavior may reoccur. Asking, what could you do differently? Have the child give you answers. Do not give them the answers. They need to set their own goals, and this helps them with their growing process and developing process of being autonomous. Setting goals is a good way to help a child be conscious about a specific behavior. An example of this would be that the child has to go the rest of the day with keeping their hands to themselves, and so on. When making these goals, it is a good idea to have a phrase in which one can say to remind a child of the goal they have set. A phrase such as, where are your hands? These phrases should be able to be used fairly quickly. That way they can be used in the moment, and the child can think about the action that she may be about to do, and they can think about the goals that they have set. Now, before we recap, I want to say a little disclaimer. As my boss, Erica Kari, says, no two children are the same, and what may work for one may not work for the other. So you might need to get a little creative with this process. Now, with that being said, let's recap. These children deserve the best chance at understanding what they have done wrong in any situation. If we talk with a child, they end up taking more away from that learning situation, rather than if we talk to them. They will apply what they have learned in other areas of their life rather than don't do this and don't do that, which doesn't satisfy their question of why. These methods not only encourage good behavior in any situation, but they can cause the child to think rather than to mindlessly get talked to and never learn anything. They also cause great relationships to form between adults and children, ones that can really help children later on in life.